Welcome to Movie Dumpster Season 7, Episode 15. Today we're talking about Salem's Lot from 1979, directed by Tobe Hooper. And today we're going to find out which version of Stephen King's Salem's Lot is the best. I'm Joel Escola.
And I'm Sean O'Rourke.
Welcome to the Dumpster. It's the most wonderful time of the year, Sean. Once again. Now, we did kick it off already. So Trick or Trash is in full swing.
Right.
Because we were at Crypt Video Rentals at Neshaminy Creek. We did Beetlejuice Live, which you can go check out right now. That was a really fun time we had at that event.
Bat Juice came out to play.
Bat Juice certainly came out to play.
Or as Dino lovingly referred to as Battle Juice and drew an image, which you're now seeing on screen, video watchers. If you're not seeing it, audio watchers, check that out. It was an image. It was fun.
Was that Batman versus Bat Juice versus the Diddler?
Yes,
that's what it was.
That was the image. Yes, thanks for spelling it out. Thank you for saving me.
Man, two of your alter egos.
I guess.
Within the Batman universe, question mark?
Well, in the MDU, for sure.
In the MDU.
They're both in the movie
Duking
dumpster
it out. Yeah.
Universe, absolutely. But yeah, you're right. We already kind of started Trick or Trash. We even had that Crow episode finally made its ass out onto the schedule. So that was accidentally a Trick or Trash episode, but I think it counts. He's in the makeup.
You know what? It totally counts. You want to know why?
Connor's there too.
Well, you want to know why? The Crow is technically a Halloween movie.
That is true.
It takes place not on Halloween, but it takes place on Mischief Night. Devil's Night.
Totally unrelated, but the new one's out, so fuck it. I watched the first Terrifier, also apparently a Halloween movie. Well, didn't know that.
Oh yeah, totally a Halloween movie. So it's the second one. And the third one just dropped. It's in theaters right now. And I may or may have not been on set doing some things, which I'm going to announce soon or later. I'm not sure which one. Once I get the go-ahead, I'm going to do it. So it's going to be pretty sweet. I'm very excited for that.
Yes.
But yeah, we were originally going to do the Salem's Lot episode last year. Do you remember for Trick or Trash? We were like, oh shit, that Salem's Lot remake is coming out. So let's, we're going to do this. We were going to do the original 79 one, the Tobe Hooper one. We're going to talk a little bit about Return to Salem's Lot. We're going to talk a little about the Rob Lowe one, all that stuff, and the Chapel Waite stuff, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Right.
But it ended up getting pushed back.
At first, indefinitely. Almost like we were worried it was going to be a Batgirl situation, or God forbid. Well, I guess Batgirl also got canceled, but I was going to say Acme versus Coyote, which is one that really kills me personally.
Oh, you keep coming back to that? Well, that's like shelved indefinitely, right?
That's what we thought this was going to be. It felt like it for a while, right? There was like a year there where we didn't hear shit, and we're like, did this movie just, the new one, I mean, did it just get forgotten about? Is it never coming out? And at this point, it has been released. It finally did happen, but there was a while there where we were like, uh-oh, is this just never happening? What happened to Salem's Lot?
I think what happened was, after that the total fucking debacle that was the Children of the Corn remake, that just came out like a fart in the fucking wind and drifted away, like nobody knew about it. I think they were like, oh shit.
They got worried.
Yeah, they got real worried. We're going to talk more about the Salem's Lot remake in a ripe review of the Salem's Lot remake to kind of go in tandem with this, a little sister ripe review, if you will, for this episode. Lots of Salem's Lot shit going down for this Halloween season, Trick or Trash season.
Yes. Vampire fangs. I forgot them at home. My glow-in-the-dark fangs.
We actually have some in the inside.
Okay.
But we're not going to go get them.
Well, they protect us from glow-in-the-dark holy water.
Well, you need glow-in-the-dark holy water. Well, it's like Sting, dude.
I know. Oh, my God. Yeah, when we get to it.
When we get to it, we'll talk about it. But yeah, before our crosses start to glow, if you want some more Movie Dumpster content, you can head over to patreon.com/moviedumpster. You can get an ad-free audio version of the show for only $2 a month. And if you want to sign up for the $5 or $10 tiers, you get some other great stuff like live watch-alongs, commissary tracks, sticker packs, t-shirts, glow-in-the-dark pin, all kinds of good stuff. Help you support your favorite show.
And if you're watching here on YouTube, please like the video and share it with your friends. It really does help the video get out to more people. And subscribe if you're not already. And if you're listening here on your favorite podcast app, also leave us that 5-star review if you got the time. And if you got even a little more time, write us a review. It does help us get out of the bottom of the dumpster and into more eardrums, eyeballs, and everything in between.
Yeah, we tell you all the time, those reviews help more than anything. They really, really do. So if you can do that for us, we'd really appreciate that. You don't have to buy anything, but if you'd like to, you can go to moviedumpsterpodcast.com where we got a store. We have a calendar where you can find out where we're doing, where the dumpster boards are going to be, what kind of events we got going on in the future. If you want to check that out, and if you want to follow us on your favorite social media platform, you can do that at Movie Dumpster. And yeah, check it out. So yeah, before we jump into Salem's Lot, I want to talk a little bit about vampires in general, because I don't think we covered a vampire movie on the show?
Well, I got a little mahogany just thinking about it, Joe. How could you ever forget?
How could I possibly forget? And there's a joke coming up later I got for that.
Yeah, there's actually a twofer on that one.
Yeah.
John Carpenter's Vampires. We did a mainline episode and the book to the movie, kind of doing a deep dive with CB on that. But yeah, that might be it. I want to say there's probably at least one or two more. Like, does Midnight Hour even count?
Midnight Hour has vampires in it, but I think John Carpenter's Vampires is the only vampire movie. Now, we have not tackled Fright Night yet, which is my personal favorite vampire movie, but we're going to get to that eventually.
Or Lost Boys, since we're saying our favorites.
Well, we're going to be talking
I don't
about...
want to be left out here.
No, that's fine, but we're going to be talking about Fright Night, and we're going to be talking about Lost Boys, because there are some interesting parallels that I happen to pick out on this watch through the 79 version.
How could you not? This miniseries puts out a lot of ideas. I mean, a lot of it they do get from King's book, but the way it's presented in this series,
it was interesting, not in a rippy-offy way, but like, I see what you did there.
Exactly,
kind of thing.
like homages later on.
You know, we went deep on werewolves in our Bad Moon episode. We went deep in werewolves a couple times.
We've done a lot of werewolf films and Frankenstein adjacent things.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on some vampire stuff real quick, like in general, and like the
Bram Stoker.
Well, the folklore of the vampire is even older than that.
I know,
way older than that, and it's just a different kind of creature altogether. And I think we've mentioned that where like. It was kind of a similar creature to the werewolf, and they kind of split off and went their own separate ways.
Similar origins.
Yeah, there's plenty of places that you can find more info about that, but I always find that interesting. But when we get to the contemporary vampire, or you know, the modern vampire as we know it, and how it's portrayed in film and TV and comic books and stuff like that, the first vampire stories were predominantly female vampire stories. And
what if that's an effect of like the succubus or something to that effect?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm sure there's some other show you could watch where it goes into the literary origins of everything. But specifically Lord Byron and John Polidori, the same night that Mary Shelley came up with the Frankenstein idea.
And fuck John Hurt, of course.
Yes, fuck John Hurt. So John Hurt is also responsible for Frankenstein, and he's responsible for the first vampire story, because Lord Byron writes a portion of a vampire story. Okay. And then Polidori takes it and then adapts it into The Vampire. And that was in 1819. So that is
that vampire with a Y? Is the vampire?
Yes. Yeah, the vampire. That one is considered the first quote unquote vampire story, like officially. And that had a male lead vampire in it.
Okay.
Who was a sexual deviant.
That was the beginning.
Go figure. Also, it must have been Dracula Unbound, right? Like, it must have been John Hurt he was talking about.
Right, before the guy who actually wrote the fucking book did. I know CB's told us that, you know, there's Frankenstein, and then there's actually the Dracula version that never became a movie, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first one, and and a lot of people talk about Carmilla, which is another big influence that had been around before Dracula, a big vampire story that was female-driven, and that came out in 1872. Oh, wow. But again, predominantly featuring female vampire in the vampire role, and that was kind of one of the first ones to do like the seductress kind of thing.
We fucked up, people. Nothing against Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee, but what were we doing? We screwed up as a society.
It kind of the vampire as it became more modernized was more like a reference to, first it was like references to like peasants and like, you know, the blood-sucking leeches of society, and then they kind of flipped it on its head where it was, you know who actually is the bloodsuckers of the fucking society? The aristocratic cocksuckers. Yeah. So they became vampires, right?
Interview with a Vampire obviously leans into that.
There's
stereotype.
There's a lot of cool vampire lore stuff that's adjacent to all that if you want to go check it out and look it up. It's really neat stuff, especially how it became went from folklore to literature and then evolved in literature and then evolved to film, of course. After Bram Stoker's Dracula comes out in 1897, we get Nosferatu, which is like the unofficial adaptation of Dracula.
I gotta revisit the movie. Obviously, It's been a long. Was it 100? Were we at 100 years yet?
Oh, it's over 100 years.
Actually, yeah. No, I knew that.
We're going to talk about Nosferatu because we're going to do a ripe review of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, which I'm fucking so excited for.
That's why I kind of want to revisit, because for some reason I try to watch every type of film genre, and I would guess I would consider silent film its own genre at this point.
No, it's gothic horror still.
It's just, I don't know. I can't get into silent film. I try watching Hunchback, that classic Lon Chaney Hunchback. I just can't. I got to give it another shot. It's been a few years, and in preparation for the new one, maybe I'll take the dive. But I love the history you're laying down. It's making me, the wheels are turning. I'm thinking of SpongeBob now. He's flicking that light switch, Joe. But the creature Nosferatu, which is relevant to this film.
Yep.
I like the look of that version, and of course, there's the one that came much later, the Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich one.
And that's a story. And that's the story of Max Schreck and the making of Nosferatu.
Well,
which I thought,
the making of.
Well, yeah, right. Loose air quotes. Yeah.
Which is a great film. I actually love that movie, so it's kind of a shame that I could never get into Nosferatu. But maybe that'll change.
Well, we're gonna revisit it. We're gonna talk all
it.
about Nosferatu when we get there
in January.
Yeah, in January. Well, no, for Christmas season.
Well, it comes out at Christmas, unless we're live editing this fucking review.
Yeah, that's right. It's a January ripe for sure.
Yeah,
we got some good stuff coming up for January.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Dracula.
Yes.
One of the most influential books in the horror genre, like ever, of course.
I would even argue literature on some level.
Literature in
with
general.
The ideas with the passages,
100%.
and diary entries. I mean, unless books were doing that at the time, and I'm just ignorant to that.
But the book Dracula really solidified that aristocratic kind of foreigner taking over kind of thing that it kind of put forth.
Old kind of dying thing, sucking life out of something else and rejuvenating itself.
Right, but less like a creature, more gentlemanly, more versed in with etiquette, with style and seduction, and he was just
charm.
Charm, and he basically looks like he's described in the book as like Gary Oldman Dracula.
Well, that was the 90s, version of the Victorian era.
Fantastic though. That's still my favorite interpretation of Dracula. So it's not what Bela Lugosi looks like in that version, and the play, of course.
Yeah.
With his hair slicked back the suit and all that shit. But yeah, my point is, it was more. Yes, he was a bloodsucking creature, but he also had other intentions for what he was doing.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. He just wasn't a monster. You know what I mean. So with that being said, we'll get to Stephen King. When he's teaching some art and literary class or some shit, he comes up with the idea, and they're talking about Dracula like in the class. And that's when he kind of gets the idea to do Salem's Lot. He wants to do a version of Dracula for the 20th century, kind of. And that's how it kind of comes about, which I thought was kind of neat. And there's also one other thing that inspired him previous to that, but we'll get to that. Okay. And it's a big part of the book.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to talk too much about the book. I know you're going to talk a little bit about it, but I want to save that for C.B. Smith and Book to the Movie, because this is going to be a big one.
Yeah, that's to come down the road, if not next year, the year after, but that is absolutely one we're going to do. I read the book for pleasure, and also just because we were going to do the miniseries. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I always plan to read the book, and then when it finally was actually happening, I was like, all right, let me get the book. I got about a month or two to read this, and I kind of flew through it because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Which, you always like when you find a book that you pick up and you could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't take notes. There's certain things I'm definitely going to call out where I'm like, why the fuck wasn't this in here? Or, I really like how this was changed, or, shit like that. But I didn't take notes. That's not the point of this. Definitely look forward to a Book to the Movie where I will be a little bit more nitpicky with that shit when CB's here with the fucking highlighter telling us stuff.
Sure, you're enriching your knowledge of what we're talking about. And that's totally cool. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and point of comparisons, for better or worse, kind of a double-edged sword, because I've literally read the book and then I think the next day watched the miniseries, so I'm doing that thing. I wish that was different. I like that. It's, that happens every time. I did that with Jurassic Park. Yeah. I mean, I'd already seen the movie 100 times, but when I read the book, I was like, fuck, why didn't they do that?
It's funny you said that, too, because, I specifically didn't reread the book because I wanted to watch all of the film iterations and kind of see how they stacked up against each other.
Yeah,
then see how it'll translate to when we do Book to the Movie. So yeah, Salem's Lot, the novel, it's considered one of King's best. It was the second published novel ever,
which is crazy.
It comes out right after Carrie, the success of Carrie, and he does Salem's Lot, and people regard it as one of his best works, and I think his favorite work. that he's done. He's gone on record saying.
I did see that. I don't know how recent that quote is. I don't know if he's updated that since then. But according to Wikipedia, our favorite or source of information besides IMDb, that's what he said.
So it was called a couple different things, too, which I thought was funny. He originally wanted to call it Second Coming. And his wife was like, that sounds like a fucking porn book. Let's not do that.
Honestly, it sounds like Jesus.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it kind of was doing. Because I know thematically there's a lot of faith stuff in the book.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, Jerusalem's Lot. There is a lot of references to that now that you say it.
So so then he changes it to Jerusalem's Lot. And then the publisher shortens it to Salem's Lot. And that's how we get to Salem's Lot, basically.
I mean, they do call it Salem's Lot repeatedly in the book as a shorthand, so...
Well, it totally works, and that's probably why they took it and were like, oh, that's like the vernacular of the peasantry, rather, and like, oh, yeah, go to old Salem's Lot out in Maine.
Yeah, the lot.
Fucking Maine.
Honestly, the publisher's fucking home run on that one because I don't feel like Jerusalem's Lot would have had that broader appeal for the reason I just said. People look at that, unless they see Stephen King and they knew about Carrie, second book, they might not.
That's also true.
They might just think it's like some religious thing. I don't know. You see the word Jerusalem, it has just like you saw Nazareth or anything like that.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Salem, I don't know. You might not jump to that conclusion.
Well,
I don't know.
When I see Salem's Lot, I immediately think of Salem, Massachusetts, and I immediately think of witches and what could this book be about by Stephen King, the master of horror.
Which is a much better selling point, yes.
At least I think that's where my brain goes, when I see it.
Yeah.
King references this book a lot in his later works. He does 2 short stories, technically 3, but the 2 real adjacent ones are literally called Jerusalem's Lot, which is a short story in the Night Shift collection, and also One for the Road that's in the Night Shift collection as well. One for the Road is more like a contemporary... This is Salem's Lot now, and it's about this family who drives through during like a really bad blizzard, and it's really fucking good. And they stop at this bar, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay,
check it out.
Dell's Bar, I'm assuming.
It just might be, but check it out. Check out the Night Shift collection because it's a breeze to read. If you just read the novel, I
got all the information still.
Yeah, you can read it real quick, and then Jerusalem's Lot. Reads basically like a diary entry.
Okay.
And that takes place way before the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
maybe fills in some holes of things they imply that are in the book.
Yeah. So whereas there's vampires coming to town in Salem's Lot, there was already vampires there in Jerusalem's Lot, which is really interesting. And then they did the Chapel Wait series, which we're going to do on Patreon. So stay tuned for that.
They do talk about in the book, and again, it's been a few weeks since I read it at this point, but there is another town they do mention very early on, and they never flat out say that it was vampires. But it's like pretty heavily implied because it's like, oh, it's a ghost town. Everyone disappeared. We don't know what happened.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, unless I read too much into that and it was literally just fucking the town died and people moved. But that's how I read it. So it's not like this is Barlow's first rodeo. I mean, again, the guy's been around for centuries. They imply.
Well, in the Chapel Wait series, as we'll come to see, there's like a town next to Jerusalem's Lot that has all the vampires in it.
Got you. Okay.
And they come to Jerusalem's Lot. Yeah.
All right.
There's one more which kind of gets into the Dark Tower territory, which is the Little Sisters of Illyria.
Okay.
Now, that's really just adjacent to Salem's Lot because it deals with vampires and stuff. And there is a dog in it that is also representative of Father Callahan, which we'll get to, who also appears in the Dark Tower series.
Okay, I did see that.
So when we get to him in the movie, we'll just talk briefly about that and how he connects to that.
Yeah, because he's a character that has a very interesting ending in the book, at least, and in the miniseries, he's kind of just a forgotten about kind of side character that's, he serves his purpose, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really have the same purpose at all as the book. So you're like, what happened to this guy? So I did a little research, but I don't have any of the context or anything.
Oh, we could talk a little bit about it, because you know what happens to him in the book, and it's kind of, it kind of carries over a little bit. So yeah, Salem's Lot comes out in 1979, and it was a big hit. So of course they made a sequel, Return to Salem's Lot by the legendary Larry Cohen, famous for the It's Alive movies, Cue the Winged Serpent, The Stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Might be my favorite Larry Cohen just out of that list.
He's excellent. Return to Salem's Lot, not so much. It's like Salem's Lot in name only, and like
none of the heart.
It has literally nothing to do with Stephen King's book. and any of those characters. Michael Moriarty is the star, and if you've ever seen a Larry Cohen film and you know who Michael Moriarty is, you know what you're already in for. So he plays this.
No, that doesn't really fit Salem's Lot. I can figure the one-liners are firing off from Michael.
Well, he plays a reporter, and he like goes to different countries and documents all like war atrocities and like different tribes and stuff like that. So he's always in the thick of the shit.
Okay. And now he's in fucking Salem's Lot after the shit hit the fan.
His aunt dies, who's lived in Salem's Lot. He
Mabel
goes.
Warts?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
He goes back and he basically finds out that the whole town is vampires, and they want him to write about the town, but not to publish right now, to publish like 100 years from now. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. I wish it was something else and not Salem's Lot, like a Return to Salem's Lot.
I might watch it just out of morbid curiosity. I mean, I did all this fucking homework, if you will.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like homework, but yeah, I don't know about that. The way the movie ends, which we'll talk about later in this review, I could see how that could happen. But I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it and make my own decision, but that sounds a little silly to me.
You have to watch it as a completely different movie.
Yeah, that's
right?
unfortunate.
Like that's how you have to watch that to enjoy it. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I think it's kind of there's some stuff I like about it. The main vampire, who is Barlow but not Barlow, kind of. He's like an animatronic, and it's really fucking cool looking.
Like the replacement Barlow, yeah.
Yeah, sorta.
Okay.
I don't know. You check it out if you want to check it out. It has nothing to do with fucking Salem's Lot, so just understand that.
Maybe I'll watch it before we do the ripe. So if you want to find out what I thought, watch the fucking ripe on the new one.
And then that brings us to 2004.
Yes.
With
the current year.
With the true...
I mean, people might be watching this in the future, Joe. We don't know.
2004? Not 2024.
Oh, Jesus, brain fucking far. I came out of the time machine with Urkel. Yes, 2004, not 2024.
It's been 20 fucking years since the first remake of Salem's Lot came out.
Yes, I'm with you now.
So there you go. So the 2004, we see Salem's Lot with Rob Lowe and Rutger Hauer playing, Rob Lowe plays Ben, and Rutger Hauer plays Mr. Barlow. We're going to talk about the original, but the original miniseries, but the 2004 remake is like kind of like a modern twist on it, but it also retains more of
like modern as in 2004, right?
Modern as in 2004. So this takes place in the 70s clearly, and that takes place in 2004 clearly, but it retains story beats and characters that were either cut out of the original or merged in the original, separated and reintegrated with a couple different storylines.
Like done differently, okay.
It's just done differently. If you watch the original 79 and the 2004, I think you're going to get most of the book plot lines interwoven, like kind of like a more complete picture of all of that stuff. Maybe
I have to see it, and then if it doesn't, maybe the new one, the 2020, the actual 2024, maybe that'll be the final puzzle piece.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know, because they do cut quite a bit out of the miniseries, but again, there's just so much in that book. Like King really packs a lot in this fucking little book.
The 2004 one is fine. I think it's pretty decent. Mr. Barlow in the 2004 one is much like the one in the book. He's very, Rutger Hauer appears as a man.
Does he start more like Dracula, where he is decrepit at first? Or is he always just Rutger Hauer?
Well, no, he's in a few different forms.
Okay, yeah.
But he's mostly Rutger Hauer, and he's interacting with people and talking to them and stuff like that.
So that's like the book, then.
So it's like the book. So it's much more Dracula-esque.
He's only really Nosferatu, if you want to refer to him that way. Like, the first few scenes he's like mentioned, and it's like very creepy, the scenes that he is like that, but then he's just a dude, which he's still creepy, but it's a different kind of creep at that point. Sure.
So that's pretty much it. That's all the other movies and remake stuff that I want to talk about at this moment. But let's get into the 79 miniseries.
Yes.
So originally this was a 2-part miniseries in 1979, and it aired on CBS in November.
I gotta say, before we even really talk about this movie, it's pretty fucking impressive for a made-for-TV film. Like, some of the nitpicks, I still might say them, but I'm trying to, like, hold my tongue a little because I'm trying to remember. Made-for-TV, 1979. Holy shit, that's crazy.
Made-for-TV, 1979, $4 million budget, Sean.
That's like when we did Trilogy of Terror. I had to like think about that too. I mean, that's even, you know, a little bit less involved than this, of course, but yeah, 4 million. Wow.
This is another one that premiered on TV and scared the living shit out of my parents. My dad is still scared of the Danny Glick scenes, like the window scenes and all that. Still freaks him out.
Window scenes are iconic.
Yeah. I texted him the other night. I was like, "Oh, you know, it's the Salem's Art remake is on Max," and he's like, "Oh, I'm not watching it before bed." He's like, I'll watch it in the daytime. And I said, watch out for the Glick boys at your window.
You're going to hear tapping. You better have any tree branches by the windows. It ain't going to be poltergeist.
No.
It's going to be fucking vampires. I don't know what's worse.
So there's fucking 4 different cuts of the original miniseries.
That is crazy, because when we were talking about this in preparation, you're like, well, what version did you watch? Did you watch the right version?
Well,
did you watch the 3-hour and 12-minute cut? And I'm like, I think.
Well,
I did.
Which it's really interesting because as they were shooting the TV miniseries, they were also shooting for a European theatrical version.
Right, yeah, I saw that.
So I thought that was really curious. So let's break these down. So you got the miniseries version that's on television. It's 200 minutes.
Okay.
And that's the first broadcast, and that has the intro bumpers, the intro and the outro bumpers, and it has the recap for the second episode.
Oh, okay.
To kind of tell you about what's happening.
And I'm assuming commercials are packed into
commercials,
that?
I don't think so.
All right,
but
still.
Yeah. Then they rebroadcast the series a year later, and they cut it down to 150 minutes.
I guess there's some shit you could cut, but okay.
So we're going from 200 to 150.
Yeah.
Now, the US DVD and Blu-ray version is 183 minutes, which it is the complete version.
Maybe that's what it is.
It's the complete version, but there's no recaps and there's no and front and back bumpers. So it's all it's like stitched together, right?
Yeah.
Front to back.
That's the version I watched.
That's the version we both watched. That's
I don't know if it was on Tubi or if I had to rent that.
That's the complete TV series version and the most complete version of the movie. Right? That's the whole enchilada.
Feels like a movie minus the occasional where you could tell, oh shit, a commercial was supposed
commercial
to go
break,
here.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, they were filming simultaneously for a European theatrical version, which is the cut version, which is Salem's Lot, the movie.
Oh, so the version in your hand.
The version in my hand, the 1984 Warner Brothers clamshell here is the alternate movie version, theatrical version.
I wonder how pissed people were. They went out, they spent like their $70 or $80 fucking dollars on this tape, and were like, "Where's half the movie?
This fucker."
Where the fuck did it go?
We went from 183 minutes, soup to nuts, to 112.
You might as well at that point just throw the fucking tape in the trash and put the book in there and just put it on the shelf and be like, "You're better off."
Well, I'm going to tell you why you should hang on to this copy.
Okay, like the actual... I'm joking, but okay.
No. But like this version of it, the movie version, because you cannot get it anywhere. It has not been released on disc. You can only watch the movie version on VHS.
So is this like a holy grail thing to you, or is this a coincidence you just happen to have?
I think it's... Well, no. I bought it when I was a kid because I had it, and I would watch it, yeah. But it's the home video version.
Yeah.
Right? So what's special about this is that it has alternate scenes.
Okay, I was going to ask that. Is this a Halloween situation?
And there's more gore in it.
Okay, which I'm assuming is in the extended.
No, it's not in the TV version. There are shit in this that is not in the TV version.
Oh, I mean in the Blu-ray version.
Nope, not in the Blu-ray version either. No,
wow.
The DVD and the Bluray are the same cuts.
Not in there.
Which is the entirety of the original TV broadcast, sans the bumpers and the intros, like the recaps.
Do you know why? Is that because that was stuff that was made for the European version? So did it just get messy with the...
As far as I know, they were just shooting it at the same time to kind of cash in on a theatrical and a TV series.
Right.
So they kind of double dipped while they were making it. They were like... They were thinking with the old doodle, man.
They were.
They got broadcast rights to do the exclusive miniseries. Then they have a European cut of a theatrical version of the film. And then when it finally came to home video, that was the version that made it to home video first.
That's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see some of those differences.
Well, we're going to talk about them, and we got the tape, so you're going to see clips, baby.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, if you watch it on YouTube. Benefits of watching on YouTube.
There you go. besides getting to see our beautiful faces.
This is also true. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you. Directed by Tobe Hooper. What can we say that hasn't already been said about Tobe?
One of my faves.
He's the fucking best, dude. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, if not the best.
It's up there for sure.
It's really up there. Top 5, at least top 3, maybe.
I mean, and we were talking a little bit about that earlier. Like, that's one of those movies that always gets a really good transfer update every couple of years. It's like, I don't know, ever since I've been buying DVD, it's like they put out a new version every 5 years. It's like, fuck, this looks so good. How does this look so fucking good? I mean, they're spending the money because it is a classic, but it's like crazy how well it holds up.
And for taking place in the 70s, it there's a timelessness about it. You know what I mean?
Well, even this film, I would say, besides clothes, it is pretty timeless.
But, you know, he's done
Poltergeist,
The Fun House, Eaten Alive. He's done The Dark, Life Force, I think was the one that you were thinking.
Oh, yeah, Life Force. That's great.
The Invaders from Mars remake. You know,
all bangers in my opinion.
All bangers, man. All so good. I think that Tobe Hooper as a director's underappreciated. I mean, everybody likes Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we don't really talk about his other stuff. I really want to cover the Funhouse one of these days.
Yeah, that's one you've been talking about. I mean, I love Poltergeist, but I feel like that's been talked to literally to death, no pun intended.
Sure.
And there's that baggage with Poltergeist, but I don't want to divert the conversation too much with that.
Also, like, what can we say about Poltergeist that hasn't already been said?
Wow, that would be a case of just I love the movie, so let's talk
you love
about
the movie,
it.
and maybe we will.
Yeah,
Who knows?
just
One
saying,
day, Stranger Things.
I feel like that attributes maybe to some of the shit you hear people talk about this director, and I don't think it's deserved. And again, maybe that's a conversation for another time.
No, and you know what? I agree. I agree with that
because the stuff he's doing in this film, and maybe some of that is the cinematographer or other people that are on set. Don't get me wrong; I'm not so ignorant to think it's just Tobe, but a lot of these decisions, a lot of these camera angles, a lot of these the way the actors are portraying these scenes. You know, there is a lot of those cogs in the machine to make it work, but hey, it's fucking firing off on all cylinders. Even if the story, sometimes I'm like, all right, that was a weird thing to do here. Again, coming from the angle of I just read the book.
Sure.
Everything else is like really looking good throughout the entire film, so you can't praise Tobe too much, I don't think, because you're right, not enough people do.
Yeah, but man, I mean, everything about this. If you watch this flick, you can see all of the influence that come off the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because he was hired because of Texas Chainsaw Massacre to do this. And there are some creepy fucking scenes in this movie. And for a 79 flick made for TV, we were talking about this on the Trilogy of Terror episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary as fuck, man. And they still are bone-chilling to this day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a few scenes in particular. I mean, one we just talked about, like you said, your dad's even scared of it.
Yeah.
Like Lost Boys references it, the window scene. But there's just stuff in this film that just has impacted horror as a whole. Vampire films especially. But
which have come from the book and then kind of visually translated in their own way, kind of.
I mean,
influenced
that fog that Tobe's got fucking pumping in throughout this entire film, just the atmosphere.
It's just that's another thing. It's like dripping with like that gothic atmosphere, and I think that's why it works so much.
It also helps that the vampires look really good in this.
For 1979 made for TV, there's not a whole lot going on to them, but they look fucking great.
Makes me think of Fright Night a little bit.
Well, Fright Night is a little bit more makeup heavy.
It's probably influenced by this a little, specifically when Jerry kind of freaks out a few times in the film and he has like that look with the makeup. Doesn't go full vampire, but he's got the fangs and kind of like the shading.
Well, he's got there's like a brow piece and cheek pieces and big teeth and all this stuff. In this film, it's literally just regular makeup on the face, the teeth and some contacts.
The contacts are really haunting. In the book, I do kind of like how they're red eyes, but the yellow was really effective in this.
It works so good, especially on Barlow when we get to his house.
Yeah.
So you want to plot lunch this real quick?
Sure. So this is a movie about Salem's Lot, the town of Salem's Lot. Our lead character, Ben, is a writer returning to his hometown. He's got some writer's block, so he's going home to maybe get something going, and he decides he's going to write a story about the Marsten House, this evil fucking last house by the cemetery kind of house, your classic House of Usher kind of building that freaks him out. And long story short, someone from overseas moves in and buys that creepy ass house, and oops, they're a fucking vampire. And as the series goes on, slowly you're kind of finding out, oh shit, people are being transformed. People are dying in mysterious ways. People are sleeping a lot later into the day than they usually do.
They're dreaming. They're having lots of dreams.
A lot of dreaming, a lot of mind control, and of course that Nosferatu-esque vampire, Mr. Barlow, makes his appearance towards the end of the film, and we kind of have these characters come together who are the only ones really, these 3 or 4 characters in the whole town that even have an inkling of what's happening, that, fuck, there's a vampire, we need to do something, and they band together to try to stop him. Will they succeed, though? Let's talk about it.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
So we open up in Jimico, Guatemala.
Yes.
And
Los Zapatos in the book, by the way, why they changed
they changed it? I don't know.
Because Los Zapatos is like a joke in the book where it's like, the shoes!
Oh.
Maybe they thought that was a little too weird. They're like, fuck it, it's Guatemala.
Yeah, fuck them. I whatever.
But we get introduced to the tall man and the boy as they're introduced in the book, because the book does also start like this in a flashback.
Yeah.
For very different reasons, we find out towards the end here.
Gotcha.
But our 2 leads, Ben and Mark.
Yeah, Ben Mears and Mark Kerwin. Or excuse me, Mark Petrie. Or Petrie? I think it's
Petrie.
Is it Petrie or Petrie?
I said Petrie because there was a character or an actor named Petrie.
Yeah.
Petrie on Dog Soldiers, and Smith said it right. It's Petrie. Mark Petrie.
I think they call him Petrie in the movie,
anyway,
but whatever.
There's the Petrie side tangent.
So they're in Guatemala, and they got some fucking holy water, and it starts glowing, and they're like, they're here, they're coming, the vampires, the goblins,
the orcs are
outside.
The Urukai are outside the gates. Fuck.
And they're basically alluding to the fact that, like, you know, they're being hunted by vampires.
Like they've ran so far, but they've still
ran
after
so far,
them.
but they're still after them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we flash back 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
So Salem's Lot, Maine, 2 years earlier. And we get introduced to Ben again, but when he first arrives to Salem's Lot.
Right. His big return.
So he was there as a boy. And we could talk about this now because we're going to be doing this.
Oh,
we're going to be truncating this even more so than the 3-hour miniseries.
Yeah, this movie spends a lot of time with atmosphere, which you need, but we can't talk about every leaf and every piece of fog.
No, and it's absolutely wonderful.
every bat.
Do not fast forward or skip through this movie. Drink it all in for the spooky season if you're going to watch it.
You have to.
Yeah. So he rolls up to the Marsten House, and it's this ominous thing that I know is looming in the book as well, but it's a big part of the movie too, and it's kind of like this beacon of evil for the town, and
especially in this, it's almost like I said, House of Usher or Amityville House kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I was thinking of too when I was watching it? It's like the house on Niebolt Street in It.
Oh yeah. I actually was thinking that specifically in the miniseries. Mm-hmm. They do talk about how evil the house is in the book, but it is kind of more so Ben trying to wrap his head around it. In the miniseries, he is making a point that this place is fucking evil.
Yeah.
It's drenched into the dirt.
He's struggling between can a place be evil or does it attract evil men, and why it does that and kind of stuff.
Why am I attracted
to it? And I think that's just such a fucking cool thing. He had this experience when he was a kid where he went into the Marston mansion and he saw the owner like hang himself.
Hubie Marston, who supposedly poisoned himself and hung himself, and they go into it more in the book, but long story short, like he killed his wife and himself, and he was essentially Barlow's contact. You find out much like, I don't know if they even go into it in the miniseries.
They don't even talk about it.
But that's the whole connection, why Barlow eventually will buy that house and move into it.
Well, I like how it's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah. Because you don't know. Ben's just kind of looking at this creepy old house, and it's like, you're like, all right, I kind of get it, but you don't know why.
But that's the big concept that runs through this movie.
Yeah,
is like, like we just said, does this evil place attract evil men? Can it be inherently evil? And that's kind of like why he's there. So he's come back as an adult because he's a writer now. And he wants to write a book about the Marsten House and its history and stuff like that. Fictionalized, but based off his own experiences.
Right, because he's written 2 books at this point in universe, obvious. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously why I had to clarify that. Yeah. Anyway, so this is his 3rd book. But I like how this is how you introduce Straker, who in the book is kind of like the Renfield character. Doesn't play it like Renfield, where he's this crazy maniac. He is literally like doing all of this vampire's work. He's very like straight-laced normal citizen. He's creepy. He does creepy shit.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think anything otherwise than just, why that guy fucking say that? But where am I going with this? Straker comes out and they kind of meet for the first time.
Well, they kind of lock eyes, and Straker's played by James Mason, and he is fucking fantastic in this. His little quips, and he has this British dry humor about him that I just love so much, and he is a creep in this movie. Yeah.
I guess when I say that, though, like in the book, they make a point of, like, King, he's describing so deeply what people look like, these deep sunken eyes, one string of hair on the head, it's like, holy shit.
He is like a full-out Renfield fucking wackadoo, huh?
Oh, yeah. But yeah, he is basically, like we just, what is the term? There's a term for that. familiar, yeah. And he's going into town because they're going to open up this fucking antique store in Salem's Lot, which everyone's like,
What?
what? And, oh,
Why?
well, the tourists that come in during the summer, obviously.
Barlow and Straker's Antiques.
And this is kind of, I really like how they pepper these characters in because, again, they don't have a ton of time to work with. King's got hundreds of pages.
I think they managed to pull it off in 3 hours, especially truncating the story to where it's palatable, but
Yes.
also there's a lot of great character depth in this TV movie.
Because this is where he's going into town and he starts kind of seeing some of the local yokels.
And we get introduced to all the characters. So you get Crockett Realty, where you get Fred Willard,
MDU alumni.
MDU alumni Fred Willard. This is before he opened up the Dino Putt, right?
Right, this is before everything went to shit.
Yeah.
He had a kid. From Prehysteria 3, of course, Mr. McGregor.
Back into the left, yeah.
Right, this is before that horrible incident,
Yes.
the JFK golf swing.
Yeah.
We did that movie a long time ago, but yes, he's here. Having an affair with this woman, Bonnie. I just want to say here, I don't know why they focus so much time on this plot point. I understand when I read the book, because it actually has, like, other things that happen at the end that they don't circle back on. But the main thing you got to know is him and this woman, his secretary, are having an affair, and her husband's this truck driver, this big kind of
Cully.
drunk.
Yeah.
Cully in the name. Reggie in the book. Why he's Cully in the... They make a lot of weird name changes.
Interesting. We were talking about this too before we got on air, and you were like, oh, the payoff for Crockett is better. And like, I do.
In the book, yeah.
You were telling me what it was, but let's not talk about it now because we've got to save that for book of the movie.
Sure,
But,
okay, fair enough.
But what it was in the book, and I think what they did for the series was good because it makes the scary part Cully and Bonnie and Crockett and that whole love triangle affair thing going on, and I think it's such a powerful part of this miniseries.
It is,
and I think to your point from before, you were talking about Stephen King's writing. I think why his books resonate so much is because of his great characters, and this is also one of those things where it's not a vampire, it's not a monster, it's just people being people, and that sometimes is scary enough,
Well, right, like the whole love affair angle.
Yeah.
Cully's just gonna beat this guy's lights out or shoot him in the face. He doesn't give a fuck.
Man, that scene is fucking tense. We'll get to it.
But Larry is just like this idiot realty guy who's just is like doing deals with anybody that's gonna work with him. Like he even has this deal with Straker, and Straker's like, "Oh, thanks for all the help," and he's like, "Yeah, okay. I mean, you're paying me, whatever.
You're paying me a shit ton of money, so I'll fucking do whatever you want, there, Chief."
It's way more malicious in the book, and I don't want to just keep saying in the book, but it's to help me explain what I'm saying. So apologies.
Try not to say what's in the book too much.
No, but okay, fair enough. But I'll try to keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
But in the book, he does have a reason why he's working with them. It's not just because this guy's helping
Which
me.
is also explained in the 2004
it is.
Salem plot.
Okay.
Ben comes in because he wants to buy the Marsten House so he
Yes.
can write his book in the Marsten House. And he's like, wait a second, you sold the house? He's like, oh, yeah, I sold it to Mr. Straker right across the street. And he's like, well, nobody's lived in it for 20 years. He's like, yeah, well, tough shit. This guy beat you to the punch, bud. It took me forever to sell it, so now it's fine. We're all good.
Yeah,
He's like, but you can go stay down in the local boarding house, which is run by Eva Miller, who played by Marie Windsor. By the way, did you recognize her?
I did not. I know she's in a ton of Corman shit.
She's in the Talks episode, or Tales from the Darkside episode, A New Lease on Life. She plays the woman who owns the building.
landlord?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a great role
so
for her.
So it was kind of because it was kind of funny to see her like as the boarding house lady here, and she also owned the fucking apartment building that's alive.
Ava Miller gets around.
Yeah.
Hey, but just to finish that thought on Larry and Straker, it's like this whole thing. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to go down to the docks and get this headboard. But make sure you're there by a certain time. I'm not going to specify why, but it's really important you get there by a certain time. Also, lock all these doors at the house when you get there.
He gives them like specific instructions.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, okay, Mr. Crockett, put it down in the fucking basement and make sure you padlock it all. You got that? And he's like, yep, no problem, Mr. Straker, you got it.
He instantly hands it off to Cully like, fuck this, I'll hire Cully. I ain't doing this shit. The guy who he's fucking the wife of.
But
idiot.
So, like, just to add insult to injury, Cully, we might as well talk about it now because you brought it up. Cully knows that he's fucking his wife. So
he's almost certain he doesn't have evidence.
So he plans a stunt where he hands it off to Mike Ryerson, who is played by Jeffrey Lewis, who's incredible in this movie, and Ned Tebbett. And he gives it to them. He gives the job to them while he sneaks back to the house to watch his wife cheat on him
to prove
with
that it's
Fred
happening.
Willard.
And then just, I guess, we might as well just finish that thought.
Yeah.
And then
Let's just wrap him up.
Yeah, Coley comes in with the shotgun with the 12 gauge, and he like points it at. I'm like, okay, jig is up.
Oh man, it's great because she's like, Bonnie's like, oh, he's trying to rape me. He's like, oh, we got a rapist here, and he's like, I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking head. He's like, and Crockett's like, oh, don't kill me. You know, it's not worth going to jail for. He's like, why would I go to jail for shooting a rapist? And he's like, you raped my wife, didn't you? And he's like, oh, it was her idea. She called me.
It's like that nervous laughter because it is kind of funny, but it's very tense.
It's so fucking tense. And he's like, we're gonna go talk it out in the living room. Stay right there, puss.
This kind of plays Cully's
It's fucking
great.
creepy, man. So he brings him out in the living room, and he's got the gun in front of him. And he's like, grab the barrel, Larry. And he grabs the barrel, and he cocks the gun. And he's like, put the barrel in front of your face, Larry. And he's holding the barrel in front of him. He's like, easy! Don't go too fast. And he's got the barrel in front of his face. Now, here is an alternate cut, which is in the tape, which we're probably going to show right now. Cully puts the barrel of the shotgun in Fred Willard's mouth. Now, I thought I was having a Mandela effect because I used to watch this tape
all the time.
And I'm like, yeah, he puts the gun in his mouth. And I was like, oh, he didn't put the gun in his mouth. He just held it in front of his face. So that's interesting. So he's got the gun in front of his face, and he's like, go ahead, Larry. He's like, look, Larry, you're so good at self-control. See how easy it can be to have self-control instead of fucking my wife?
Yeah.
He finally, he's like, close your eyes, Larry. And he pulls the trigger, and it's not a loaded gun. Scares the shit out of Fred Willard. Fred Willard, like, runs into the wall and then runs out just in his underwear.
Yeah.
And then fucking Kurt Barlow fucking takes him out.
Well, yeah, because at that point he's arrived, right? We skipped some shit to get to that.
Yeah.
And then, Cully shuts the door, and it's implied he's going to beat the shit out of his wife, which he does.
Yes.
There's more from the book. We'll save it for that book to the movie that I would have liked to have seen in this film, because to me that was... like we were talking about Crockett, that is kind of the payoff to that storyline, because now Crockett is a vampire, and there is some other shit that happens with him that is important for the other characters to see, but his plot line is basically done in the movie, or the miniseries rather, whereas the book, there is more to that story, which we could save.
Yeah. So we get introduced to Susan Norton. She's a teacher, and her father is the doctor in town, and she ends up meeting Ben, and they kind of get together. They kind of hit it off because he sees her in the park.
Instantly, yeah.
And she's like reading one of his books, and he's like, hey, you want to go
Air
out
dancer.
later? And he's like, yeah, sure, all right.
Played by Bonnie Bedelia, who's famously known as Holly, John McClane's wife in Die Hard.
Yes, which was so crazy to see her in this and like so young, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, as we're going through the town, so Ben's kind of doing his thing. We get introduced to Kenneth McMillan as Parkins Gillespie.
Oh, the chief of police or whatever.
Baron Harkonnen himself. Not chief, he's the constable.
Well, that's right. Yeah. He's the head guy. There is actually another cop above him. I don't know if they even go into that in the miniseries.
Oh, no.
He gets 86'd hardcore by the vampires later on.
Just the deputy is here. We only see him in Gillespie.
He is kind of the driving force of the police force. Because he is the only one really actually investigating anything.
And he's pretty skeptical. He knows something's going on. With Ben coming into town, we get introduced to introduce this character, Weasel, who's kind of like the town drunk, who stays with Marie, or who stays with Eva in her boarding house. Because they're like together. I'm pretty sure they're like a couple.
They definitely are a couple.
Yeah. So he's like, why don't you keep an eye on Ben for me there, Weasel? And later that night, Weasel ends up like breaking into Ben's room and like reading part of his book. And he's like, that son of a bitch. Because everybody's like, why is this Ben guy here? Who the fuck are you? Why would you want to come to Salem's Lot? And he's like, he's writing a book about the Marsten House.
And he pulls the typewriter out and he like rips that Stephen King page literally out of it. It's like, oh, it's the line from the book. The house was haunting. And it's like part of the whole story where he went there as a kid. And all
it's
that.
A good line.
Oh, yeah.
And
King wrote it.
Marie, the actress who plays Eva, is really great. I really like all her parts, especially later.
I love her. I just kind of wish she was a little fat, like in the book. It's kind of a funny character quirk for her.
That's kind of attributed to Marjorie, the Glick's mom, a little bit. She's a little bit more like that descriptively.
Because Weasel, there's some inner monologue from Weasel in the book where he's talking about, he's thinking about squeezing her fat ass and stuff in that. It's just kind of funny.
So we get dinner at the Nortons' residence, which is Susan and her dad, who's the doctor.
Played by Ed Flanders.
As Bill. Yeah. He's great too in this. I love him.
He's a combination of two characters from the book. Bill, Susan's dad doesn't do much in the book. Whereas he's also kind of combined with the character Jimmy from the book, who's very important to the back half of it. It's kind of like a mortician or doctor.
So we get more character development with Susan and Ben, and they're starting to get smitten with each other.
Yep.
Now it does feel natural because of the runtime of this movie, right? You got
how quickly they get together.
3 hours and how many days? Because he's there for at least
6 months.
He's there for 6 months.
I mean, it's implied a long period of time. Several seasons go by.
In the movie, it's like weeks.
It might only be like a week or two. I think they even flat out say it's been 6 days, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. It's like one of those. It works.
They end up like going to the lake and they start falling for each other and stuff, and they kind of get to know each other a little bit more and like their backstories and why Ben's there and why she's pursuing what she's doing. Now she's a school teacher in this version of it. In the 2004 one, I think she works for fucking Crockett, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? Wow. Because the book version, she's younger. They aged everybody up a little bit. She's actually a student still, not a teacher. It's like kind of the thing where she's a senior or some shit. And Ben's like early 20s. More accepted back then, for sure.
So we talked about Cully and Bonnie already and that kind of side quest. I want to talk about Ned and Mike going to get the fucking crate.
Oh God!
So they're actually doing the job for Straker at this point. So they
job
go down
for Cully, for the job for Straker.
Yes.
For the There's layers.
You gotta that's the way you gotta break it down. So they go to get this fucking crate from the harbor, man, and this scene is so good because they're like, Ned's like, fucking crate, it's freezing cold. He's like, let's bust it open, and Mike and Jeffrey Lewis is like, what are you, fucking nuts? He's like, get it in the truck.
They keep saying it's like the sideboard. Like everyone watching this is like the fucking
That's
vampire.
That's not a sideboard.
Is in there.
The damn coffin's in there.
Yeah.
That's what's in there. So they put this big crate in the truck, and this is a really creepy scene too, which I think might have been borrowed for Monster Squad, which we'll get to.
Oh,
so they're driving in this truck, and the coffin is in a crate, and the crate is like moving up behind them, and they're like freaking out because they're like, man, why is it fucking so cold in here? And they're freezing their asses off, and he's like, and Jeffrey Lewis is like, I don't know, it's pretty damn hot out tonight. What's the deal? He's like, put the heater on.
He keeps trying to write it off like, you're crazy. The crate's not moving on its own. He's like, that thing's fucking moving. He's like, it's just the traffic. It's just moving with the road. So then they finally get to the Marsten house, and they're like unloading this thing, and it's literally in the total back, like by the driver, essentially. And they're like, fuck, we gotta get that out of there.
From it being loaded at the back of the truck, right? So they're like, all right, we got to bring it downstairs. So they bring it downstairs, and they put it down, and they start hearing like weird shit. He's like, come on, let's crack it open. He's like, no, dang, Strake is here. He's like, fuck it, let's get out of here. So they run out like fucking Abbott and Costello.
They forget the locks.
They jump in the truck, and he's like, oh no, the padlocks and shit. So fucking Ned just throws the shit down onto the floor and closes up the Bilkos, and they just fucking split.
That kind of drives me nuts, but the miniseries doesn't really do anything with that. I guess they were like, fuck it, we're not going to do anything with it. Who cares? But it's like, that's like the thing, keeping people out of the house and like keeping him secure and safe during the day. It's kind of crucial to keeping the vampire alive. But okay, sure, he threw them down there. Straker will just figure it out.
Well,
whatever.
He's like, lock the Bilko door when you leave. And nope.
No, nothing.
No. You think he's getting that $50? I don't think so.
No one's getting paid. In fact, they're all going to turn to fucking vampires anyway.
Send me the check.
Because next...
I'll get you IOU.
Yeah, because next scene is, I think, Mark.
Yeah, we get introduced to Mark, and he's like writing a play for the school, and he's kind of the up-and-coming artist in the town. There's another teacher, Jason Burke.
Yes, who is Matthew Burke in the book. Weird. That's like the Hulk shit. They changed the name.
Yeah, I wonder why. Too many M characters, because you have Mike, Mark,
That's
Matt,
what I think it is. Made him Jason, the teacher, the Van Helsing character.
Yes, but he also taught Ben when he was a kid. So he grew up. He knew he was a talented writer, and he ended up moving away and becoming a big writer, and he hopes that for Mark, too. So we get a little bit of Mark here, and he's like a monster kid. He likes his model kits and Dracula and Frankenstein and everything. He loves magic, and he's got that dad where like he's like, what are you wasting your time with this shit for?
Right.
I don't fucking get you, and I don't know why you're into this stuff, and I cannot wrap my head around any of it. So that kind of resonated with me a little bit.
But his friends, Ralphie and Danny come over.
Yeah.
And they're checking out his monster shit, and they're kind of going over the stuff for the play. But they gotta go home. Dinner's ready, Joe.
Dinner's ready, yeah. we're gonna be late. We'll come back and we'll rehearse with you later. So they end up taking a shortcut through the woods,
As you would.
And poor little Ralphie gets fucking abducted
By Straker.
By Straker. I mean, you don't know who it is, but it turns out to be Straker. And Danny Glick, like Danny Glick's the Glick's parents are like freaking out. They call Mark's parents.
Yeah, how long has it been?
How long has it been? And Danny comes like stumbling out of the woods and just fucking passes out. He can't even speak.
Oh,
and
man.
Turns out Straker brings Ralphie back to the Marsten mansion in a plastic bag and puts him on this fucking slab for Barlow. And it's so cool because the crate that was down there is just exploded.
Oh,
all over the basement with splinters everywhere. It's so creepy, man. He puts him down and like unwraps him out of this plastic like a fucking leftover.
Barlow was really pissed those locks weren't secure.
Yeah.
He's like, "Ah!
Son of a bitch.
We paid them how much? $50 in 1979?
Yeah, we're gonna eat him anyway. Fuck him.
Well, right.
So Ralphie's taken, and I love the way they kind of allude to this because he lays him on the table. He goes upstairs and just turns the light off, and the lights went out on Ralphie Glick.
Yeah. This is one change, though, I will mention. It is one of the more iconic scenes in the movie, so I can't knock it too much. But in the book, that is the last you see of Ralphie Glick. He's a fucking splatter of meat on the ground.
Really?
He's eaten by the goddamn vampire.
No shit.
Yeah, he's a snack. He never comes back.
Interesting.
Danny Glick still, like in this, does appear to die, but we don't get the pivotal scene where his brother comes back and comes a-rapping, comes a-tapping, comes knocking on his motherfucking second floor window. In one of the creepiest scenes, I think, in a horror movie ever, especially a made-for-TV horror movie.
We get this shot like 3 times. But
it works every
time is so creepy. So Ralphie comes to Danny's window, like you said, and like they get hypnotized. And the way that Jeffrey Lewis explains it later is that like it's this singing, and it's like the most sweetest singing that he's ever heard, and then he had this kind of feeling like drowning. So anyway, Danny's excited to see his brother at his window. All this fog comes up. Now the way they did this was they put the fucking kids on a boom crane.
Okay.
So instead of strings, they didn't want to do a harness because Toby was like, no, you're going to see the strings. So they put them on like a boom crane.
Make it fluid that way.
Yeah. So it's like when you put a camera on like a jib or
a crank almost.
And it's like a cantilever thing.
Got you.
So that's how they move, and it's really creepy. And they shot it in reverse, which is really awesome. And that kind of adds to it because you can see it with the smoke and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
To make it more like unnatural. And man, when he's scratching on that fucking window, those piercing yellow eyes with those contacts that they couldn't wear for more than 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, I saw that too. The bad contacts.
Yeah. But man, it's just so creepy. So he encounters him twice, but he ends up biting his brother, and Danny dies.
Right. Well, they think dies, and then this leads to our first big funeral. Actually, it might be the only one in the actual miniseries, but we get introduced to a lot more characters in the process.
There's a lot of other characters, and there's a big whodunit element to this.
Yes,
it's very
because there's like
mystery driven.
Yeah, because they're even hunting for the kids for a while. Ben even helps with the search.
Yeah, they're trying to put the pieces together. Looking at the evidence, there's like a piece of Straker's fucking suit on one of the things, or was it from the suit? We don't know.
His black suit. Yeah, they checked that. He hands all the suits over to the police. That's kind of funny. And even the cops like, he can't flat out say it, but he's like, some kids are missing, and you're new in town. And Straker is basically like, so you think it's me? He's like, well, you're a suspect.
Well, we're looking into you because Baron Harkonnen has like a couple interactions with Straker that are really good.
He also like calls the FBI and is like, hey, I got a couple names for you to check out. Ben Mears, Kurt Barlow, Straker.
It's too fucking weird. And you got a kid dead, a kid missing, and their mother's dead now. All on the same day.
At this point, Mike Ryerson
is about to fucking get it.
Well, he's about to get it, but his dog is killed.
His dog is killed,
which is a much bigger part in the book because there's a character that has this dog, and it's explained like, well, why does the dog die? It's not just a random act of violence. Yeah. It's because the dog has white around its eyes. King explains it has something to do with vampires are afraid of it. It has more meaning than just, we killed the dog!
Right, I think there that has to be something adjacent to the Little Sisters of Eloria and with Father Callahan, and that kind of all works together.
I think of Dead Lights, I know King's really into like the creepy eye shit.
Symbolism and shit.
Yeah. But the dog gets killed, and Mike Ryerson finds that. And he's already distraught. He's already someone ripe for the fucking picking.
Yeah, he's easily manipulated.
Right, so then when he goes to bury poor Danny.
It's great. great, dude.
You don't see any of this, and I do like that. Then Mike does have that scene later because I was kind of bummed at first that you didn't get that internal monologue. Because again, it is a movie; it's always kind of hard to show that.
If you watch the 2004 one, there's plenty of that internal monologue nor stuff from Rob Lowe.
Because he's thinking about the eyes. Oh, I forgot to sew the eyes. I forgot to sew the eyes. That's why he actually goes in and opens the casket, and then that scene of the eyes opening, and he's taking over. Cut.
Yeah.
Really impactful.
It's so good. Well, Danny bites him right on the neck.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the movie, yeah.
Which, if you didn't know it was vampires yet, if you somehow didn't get the memo, there you go.
Yeah, for sure. So Mark's dad, I want to go back into this real quick because Mark's dad tries to have this heart-to-heart with him and understand why understand his son's interests.
Why he's into this,
And why he hasn't been distraught about Danny and Ralphie's disappearance.
Right, he's at the funeral, but
he's kind of distant, and they think something's wrong with him. They think he's a weirdo. So he's like, sometimes I wonder why you're interested in all this bullshit. And he's like, I've always been interested in magic and monsters. And he's like, well, you were interested in numbers. That's why you became an accountant. And he's like, yeah, well, at least I can earn a living. And it's like, fuck, Dad.
Kid's like, what, 10?
The kid's like 12.
What are you talking about?
It's like, look at all the shit in his room. People have made careers of monsters. Like,
and he's building models.
I know,
and shit.
but like you don't even want to fucking try to understand any of it. You know what I mean?
That was like it's not a 1-to-1. What was that other movie we covered with the from Jersey? The big this guy up here,
Deadly Spawn.
Deadly Spawn, similar character, presented a little differently. But
I always resonate with those characters. That's me as a kid. Every time I see him,
a lot of the dumpster dwellers, I'm sure, do too. Especially people that were growing up. Again, King, he references a lot of these old movies. More in the books, less so in the movies. But like even in it's like he's thinking about Richie Tozer with the Frankenstein, the Wolfman mask.
Exactly, totally. Or even like the kids from the Monster Squad.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So Mike Ryerson's bit by Danny Glick. He comes in all fucked up into the bar and he sits down with Ben and
Jason,
and they're like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" He's like, "I fell asleep on Harmony Hill. Give me a drink." He's got these 2 fucking puncture marks on his neck.
They don't comment on it, but you can see it.
Yeah.
I do wish they did something with the food. That's kind of one of my favorite things with vampires, which is in the book. They don't kind of go there in the movie. I guess not enough time, but he never eats. He does take a sip of liquor. He doesn't spit it up. He doesn't puke.
He takes a full shot. He's not fully turned yet.
I guess so. In the book, he does. He does something similar. He eats a piece of pizza. He's like, like projectile vomiting.
It takes 2 visits from the vampire to turn into full vampire. So you have to get bitten initially and then bitten one more time.
Well, good thing he knows where fucking Mike's going, the vampire. I mean, because Mike goes with Jason back to his house.
Well, Jason takes him back to his house. He's like, "You're staying with me tonight. You're all fucked up, man."
Well, as far as we know, this guy just lives in the graveyard because he's kind of, like we said, he's combined with a few characters. And the one character that I think he's supposed to be combined with, but they don't have this location in the movie, is Dud.
Yeah.
This junkyard kind of guy, this hunchback character who is actually kind of slow. Mike Ryerson in the book is not actually like kind of out of it like this character.
He's in the 2004.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yep. That's what I was saying before. You kind of get the rest of the story in the 2004 one, like the rest of the characters.
But I bring that up specifically because he's out in the middle of the fucking elements otherwise, and that's why Jason feels bad. But he gets him home, and Jason's kind of making himself a cup of tea, not thinking much of it, and he hears like some thumping, like, what is that?
What the fuck is that? So he sees the bites on his neck. He closes the window, and he's like, something's up. So he goes upstairs. Smash cut.
That scene is so creepy when he's walking down the hallway.
Dude, it is so creepy. Smash cut to Ben getting woken up, and Jason's like,
calling him,
yeah, you need to get over here now and bring a crucifix or a rosary. And he does.
Is this the one he makes?
No, not yet.
Okay. But yeah, he gets there, and they see Mike Ryerson in there.
And he's fucking dead. The window's wide open. He's dead. There's a single drop of blood on the sheet that's on him.
Now I forget. Did they show Danny Glick in there with him? Did Jason see that yet?
No.
Okay. He does at one point, though.
Jason, not in the movie.
Okay, I might be conflating the book then. That does happen in the book. My bad.
He's like, you got to listen to me, Ben. There was marks on his neck. He's fucking dead.
Right, because the marks disappear once you go full
vampire.
Right.
So he's like, listen, Mike's a vampire. And Ben's like, are you fucking crazy? He's like, you can't tell them that. They're going to think they're going to lock you up, old man.
Seriously,
yeah, they're going to think you're unfit to teach these kids.
Or I'm going to hit the library and get some books then in the meantime, Ben. But it's probably a vampire. Cut to the next night.
Danny goes to try to get Mark.
Yeah, and Mark is actually smart enough. He does get charmed. Again, because they're not flat out saying that's what's happening,
Yeah.
but that's what's happening. But he catches himself when he kind of backs up and he grabs this like plastic cross and
Off
holds
his one
it
of his
up.
model kits, which is so cool. And like Danny's like, open the window, Mark. Mark, let me in.
That is actually, I think, creepier than the other scene. And this is the thing I really like that they brought from the book. I wish they did it more, but it's hard to translate. It kind of looks cheesy if you're not really getting fully into it.
Yeah.
The cross lighting up. I love that.
I think it's cool, and I know they definitely do it in the new remake because
Okay.
I've seen like it in the trailer.
It makes sense, especially for the context. Like, we're joking about Sting, but like, how else can Stephen King really explain the logic?
Well, also Stephen King is also a big Tolkien fan
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
so I think it's fun that I know that was inspired by Sting.
He also writes it in a way where it's like, oh, this only works because there's vampires. They don't ever flat out make it so obvious like the movie, but yeah, it's there for sure.
You know when the vampires are around because the shit blows, and they do it a little bit in the movie with the holy water, but not with the crosses.
Maybe that's where I'm getting it mixed up then.
So they have the grand opening of Barlow's and Straker's antique shop, and it's one of the first times that Ben actually speaks to Straker, and he's like inquiring about the Marsten House
because the whole town's in there. Yeah,
and he's like, do you think the house could be evil? And he's like, no, I don't believe that. Must the trees have souls or whatever? He's like, you want to take a tour of the Marsten House, do you there, son? And he's like, well, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, yes, and then you could meet Mr. Barlow, and he's gonna love meeting you.
Thank God he didn't take him up on that one, because if he did, he would have gotten the fucking Leatherface treatment, mallet to the back of the head. Good night.
Well,
I'm just saying, once we find out what the interior of that place looks like.
Also true, but he ends up going back to his fucking room, and Ned is like hiding in like behind a thing, and he jumps out and he's like, you motherfucker trying to steal my girl. He beats the shit out of him and puts him in the hospital.
Totally different in the book. That's all I'll say. He does get beat up by the same character, but it's not the same.
Right.
It's a good way to get the main character out of the equation for a little while.
Yeah.
I think the reason they get Susan out for a while is kind of ham-fisted.
Well,
where she's like, I have to go away for a few days just because we don't need this woman in the plot for like 45 minutes.
Well, she's there. She's just not within what's happening, and I think it's a good way.
She goes to Boston.
Well, I think it's a good way to truncate that story arc for the movie. You know what I mean? I think it works for me.
It does.
So you still have it, but it's not this super involved thing.
Yes.
But it still gets its point across throughout the 3-hour fucking runtime. You know what I mean?
I guess what I'm saying is they have her go to Boston for 2 days just so it's like they can cut some corners off of her plot, because she's more involved with the kind of Burke situation in the book.
We cut back to Jason's house, and he hears something upstairs, and it's so creepy, dude, because it's like the rocking chair. Immediately made me think of Death Dream with Andy in the fucking rocking chair.
Conjuring has a scene that I'm thinking about is probably a homage with the Bathsheba in the corner.
Oh, yeah. So Jason makes his way upstairs, and fucking Jeffrey Lewis is sitting in this rocking chair,
Yellow
rocking
eyes.
back and forth. It is so creepy. And he opens his fucking eyes, he looks at him, he's like,
the only thing
his fucking fangs are out and shit, man. It's great.
It looks great. The only thing he's missing is that autopsy stitching. I wanted that. They had that in the book. It was fucking cool regardless. But yeah, that is one of the craziest scenes. And Jason says, I revoke my invitation.
And he pulls his cross out. Fucking Jeffrey Lewis flies out the window and flies away.
I love that.
And Jason has a heart attack. Now he's not dead, but he kind of fucks off out of the movie in this part.
He is in the book a little more, but yeah, he does suffer some heart attacks in the book.
Yeah.
He's an old man. It makes sense.
I mean, I'd be fucking Jesus Christ. I'd have a heart attack if I saw that shit. Almost fucking getting killed by a vampire.
I do like the part of his character though, which they don't go deep into, but there is a scene where he is kind of that Van Helsing character. Like in the book, Ben even refers to him as Van Helsing, lovingly so. Where he has all the books around him and he's reading vampire lore, and they're trying to find something out because they know it's a vampire, but they really don't know. Like, if this exists, is any of this shit in these books accurate? Like,
right?
Was any of this actually something we could use against it? So they have like the garlic and the cross.
I love that idea though, right? Because you don't know what works. It's like,
yeah.
well, that was just in a
Fright
movie.
Night,
Yeah,
same
Fright
kind of
Night, big time
idea.
with that. Yeah, a little different, but we'll get there.
No, a different angle to attack that from, but same concept.
So we cut to Ned, and he's in jail. And I just want to bring this up because this is when people start getting picked off.
Oh, yeah, one
characters,
by one.
Characters that we've already been introduced to, they really start getting picked off, and the increase of vampires and how they're like turning each other. All the townsfolk are manipulating each other to turn each other into vampires.
Ava and Weasel exit the film at some point, and you're just kind of like, oh, they're probably vampires. And then they come back later as vampires.
Weasel's definitely a vampire. Eva gets turned into a vampire via Weasel when Susan goes to see. We'll get to that in a second.
And they do the whole thing where it's like, oh, people are, like we talked about earlier, people are getting sick, they're tired.
Yeah,
they
I had this weird dream.
They don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Well, Ned's in jail, and Mr. Barlow comes to see him for whatever reason, pays him a personal visit, and it's cool because he like opens he's like Norm, dude. He fucking opens the jail cell and it just opens.
In this version, yeah.
Yeah, in the movie, and he kills Ned, but this is the first time you see Barlow. Now,
Oh, in full, yeah.
you see him in his full glory, where he's this blue Nosferatu looking vampire with these piercing yellow eyes and these big teeth.
The fangs,
and
are,
it's
are what
so
does it for
fucking
me.
cool. Now, we talked about this earlier, and I want to just talk about it right now because why not? The reason they chose to go with this Barlow was because at that time, all of everybody, Dracula has been done to death. There is like 500 fucking Hammer films that have been in the 70s, mind you, all the way up to that point.
Christopher Lee.
We're starting to swing into the 80s where the ghouls and the gore and the more monster-esque stuff is being done. So I think it was kind of a pioneer decision, honestly, to make Barlow look like this Nosferatu-esque ghoul thing that doesn't speak. He's just like a literal monster.
Most of his lines that he needs to say are given to Straker.
Which is kind of cool because Straker's like the mouthpiece for the movie, which I thought was kind of neat. But I love Barlow's look in the movie, and he's really fucking creepy. And he doesn't say anything, he just growls, and it's fucking disturbing every time he does it.
We could credit that to Richard Kobritz.
Yeah, there you go.
That was the producer. I like the idea a lot. When you read the book, so much of that dialogue, it's disappointing not to see that, but it's an interesting choice. It's at least something different. I don't mind it. Straker's a good villain. There's things that happen to Straker that then can't happen in the miniseries because of the way it's presented, which is unfortunate. But the way I don't mind it.
But the way that it flows, I think, works.
Yeah, no, it does.
You know what I mean?
It does.
Again, truncated, but really letting it breathe enough where it's impactful.
Yeah, and like there's a couple other decisions that I read that Richard was the one that kind of was the final say on, that I'm like, all right, from a production standpoint, I can understand like the final confrontation when we get to it.
Yeah.
But from a story standpoint, I'm like, man, I liked what King had originally way better, but win some, you lose some.
So Marjorie Glick ends up dying because we kind of learn that Danny has been visiting her.
She's been letting him in.
She's been letting him in.
Unbeknownst to Dad.
About Danny, he's my baby.
Which is
sad and creepy.
Yeah, I just wonder how Dad didn't get bit, because even in the book, it's like just the wife. It's like, was Dad just working late? Does he have a separate room?
Maybe he wasn't susceptible. Who knows?
Maybe.
So we finally get introduced to Father Callahan.
Oh, God.
And Ben and Susan are talking to him, and they're like, so, Father, do you believe in vampires and ghouls and witches and shit? And he's like, well, kinda, but my faith is kind of waning. Or something.
Yeah, that's the character.
Yeah.
This is my biggest disappointment of this whole fucking film, I gotta tell you, is Father Callahan, the way he's handled. Like, I could nitpick some other stuff like I've been talking about, and I will talk more about it in my final thought, but he does kind of appear like in the second half of the book, so maybe they just weren't thinking that deeply on it, and the way he exits the film, like I think I might have said earlier, I don't know, he just kind of forgot. I feel like he's just there.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree with you, and then because, like, right after that, we go to Mark's house.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And Father Callahan's there, and I think they're there because Mark has told his parents that he's seeing Danny at his window.
At the window, yeah.
And they're like, "What's wrong with you? Do you need to talk to somebody?" And they seek the counsel of Father Callahan.
Right.
So he comes in, and man, one of the best scenes of the fucking movie.
Oh yeah.
The house starts shaking like a poltergeist. And like invasion, and like shit's falling off the walls, and everything's going nuts, and there's these really cool like pan in and pan out like dolly shots of everything. Kurt Barlow comes fucking through the window as a pile of clothes, and then like rises up into his full form. It is fucking awesome.
Like smoke, yeah.
It is so cool.
Unfortunately, then the thrill is shot in the heart with this horrible Three Stooges head smash. I'm reading the book when this happens, and I'm like, wow, okay, so their heads caved in. Like, that's how hard this impact was.
Yeah.
It's instant death. It's like, but don't, and they fall over, and I'm like,
it is made for television. It might be more brutal in the movie cut. I'm not sure. We'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
So he kills Mark's parents straight up. I am curious to how he got in the house though, because he wasn't invited, and Straker is also in the house as well.
I was gonna read the passage from the literal book, but when I looked it up before this, it's like 2.5 pages, so fuck that. But there's a whole reason why he's there. It's more explained. The characters are kind of going actively after Barlow. One of the main characters is already dead at this point that isn't dead at the point in the miniseries.
Yeah.
Shit like that.
I know there's there's more to Mark and how this culminates. I know that.
It is also a case on some level. And again, it's been a few weeks at this point since I read it, but Barlow is that ultimate vampire. Your Nosferatu, your Dracula, the all-powerful. I think if he wanted to go in there and your house isn't blessed, he's fucking getting in. I think that's all there is to it.
Interesting.
Like, he's that powerful.
Yeah, okay.
If there is an actual reason, I'll check before we do the new one, just to double check.
Yeah.
But I think that's all it is. He's just that strong.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
But he is specifically going there in the book to get Mark because Mark fucks up Straker in the book.
Yeah, big time.
Basically leads to his death in the book.
But this is a creepy scene. So, like I said, I mean, Straker acts as Barlow's mouthpiece in this, and he's got Mark by the throat.
Barlow's got him.
Yeah, Barlow's got him. He's ready to fucking take him out.
The fingernails right to the neck and the fangs to the left.
And he's like, okay, father. He's like, priest, you're a priest. He's like, what would you trade for this child for another night or whatever? And Father Callahan ends up sacrificing himself, and Mark runs away.
I'm curious how the Rob Lowe version went. Was it similar to this scene? Because this is one of the biggest scenes in the book, and it has a huge meaning that is kind of lost because the character isn't as important, so they kind of just don't go into a lot of it.
I can't remember.
Faith versus faith kind of thing.
I can't remember. I'm trying,
Yeah, sorry.
This is a lot. There's
a lot.
6 hours or 7 hours worth of Salem's Lot. But for this one, I love how they do the faith against faith thing. He's like, your faith against his faith, and he's got his cross. And all I could think of was, you need faith for that to work, Mr. Vincent. From Fright Night. That's all I thought about. And I was like, they had to have. This was specifically plucked, and then there's something a little bit later that was specifically plucked, like, without a doubt.
Because the priest loses his faith. Again, like I said, the book, it's way more impactful. There's way more about how Father Callahan is fighting with his faith.
He's a drunk in this one.
Yeah, and he wanted to essentially be like a Van Helsing type character. That's why he became a priest. He glorified it, and then now he's like stuck in this shithole town and hasn't done anything with his life, and now he finally is given this opportunity to save not only Mark, but these other people. It's more involved than that. I'm simplifying it.
It's not strong enough.
It's not strong enough. He loses faith. Barlow grabs the cross and crushes
it. And it drops to the ground.
And in this, it just cuts. You don't know what happens. In the book, he actually then...
Don't keep saying that.
Oh, man, fine. This is one of the craziest parts.
But we're not going to have anything to talk about from book to the movie.
I'll save it, man. It's so good, though. It is crushing that this is not in the fucking miniseries, man.
That is okay if you want to allude to it.
It loses a fucking star because this is not in it. I'm not even joking.
Well, I do know... I want to just talk about the Dark Tower thing I mentioned just real quick because Father Callahan
plays into that.
Appears in the Wolves of the Calla and I believe Song of Susanna, and he
because in the book he does live. We'll just say that.
Yeah, well he goes to New York, and that version of New York, like, his hand's all fucked up, but then he meets up with like the bad guys in the Dark Tower, and he's kind of like a vampire hunter, sort of. Yeah. And he's not really a full vampire because Barlow only made him like half vampire or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And he's kind of doomed to walk the earth, but he's a big part. He's a pretty big part of the Dark Tower stuff. So I think that's kind of neat. It's this weird meta thing where like he like realizes that he was a character in a book called Salem's Lot.
Oh, you did tell me
it's
that.
Weird.
Okay,
it's kind of weird, and that's kind of how Dark Tower functions a little bit as we get into the later part of the series. But it's still good.
He was just one of my favorite characters in the book. Him and Ben probably, and it was just kind of a bummer for me when it's like, oh, he's just like fat Tucker Carlson in 2 scenes, and then he just kind of 86 is out of the movie.
Yeah. So we get to the morgue because Marjorie's dead, and they're afraid she's going to wake up. So Ben is down there with Bill. And he's making a cross out of fucking tongue depressors, and he's blessing it, waiting for Marjorie to like wake up.
Well, he's also trying to prove to Susan's father that this is actually happening.
So she gets up and she's like, "Danny, where's my boy?" Which is creepy as hell.
Oh man.
And he's like, "Bill, get in here!" So Bill runs in.
He's like screaming for him.
And she gets off the gurney, man, and she's just so creepy. And she's like, got the fangs in her mouth, and she's got the eyes, and she's coming after him. Bill tries to like cut her with a scalpel, and like no blood comes out. It's just like green shit.
Oh yeah.
And then fucking Ben gives her the old Evil Ed right to the head, puts the crucifix right on her forehead, and she like falls backwards and disappears into smoke. And like it's so cool because like all of the tool tables and shit like fall over. It's really neat.
I didn't like that.
No?
I was like, I guess they couldn't think of another way to get rid of this character.
I thought it was cool, and like again, it's...
Yeah, I just read the book. I'm sorry, it's hard. Once you read like the crazy shit they did in the book, and you're like, oh, just put some fucking a cross on her head and she disappeared. All right.
I thought it was kind of cool. And like, again,
I'm just saying, comparatively speaking,
Sure.
it's hard to separate once you have those back-to-back experiences.
Absolutely, which is why I didn't read the
No,
book.
I know. I did it to myself. I knew that going in.
I just love that too, because like, again, I want to talk about Fright Night, because I was like, that has got to be pulled
Yeah.
from it. Like, it's the same thing when Peter Vincent puts the cross on Evil Ed's head.
He's got the mark on there later. Yeah.
So now we're gearing up to go fucking take out Barlow.
Right. Susan's back.
Susan's back. She's back in town. She's looking for Ben, and they didn't cross paths yet, I don't believe. Ben and Bill.
He's with the morgue right now. He's at the morgue.
Well, he tells her to fucking leave, and she goes and then comes back. So now Ben and Bill are like gearing up. They're getting holy water and shit, and they go to the mansion. Mark and Susan are already there. Susan comes upon Mark breaking in to the Marsten mansion.
Right, they're all kind of doing their own little quests by themselves, and everything's kind of converging
and investigating, and everything's converging on the Marsten house.
She sees Mark with these stakes, and she's like, "Oh fuck!"
Mark's like, "I'm gonna kill him. He killed my parents." Man, the mansion. The shots of the mansion and Susan walking around the mansion is so creepy. It's like some of the best like gothic horror like for TV.
I was gonna say very like Corman Poe.
It's really good.
Or early Giallo.
It's really, really good. It's beautiful. It's creepy. It's very atmospheric. And I love
the green walls.
Oh my god! And the shit and the wet shit on it and the stuff growing everywhere. It's just really good.
No one's cleaned it since Hubie killed himself.
No, and whoever decorated that set, it's really good. The set design. So Straker fucking knocks out Mark, takes Susan.
Speaking of Leatherface,
gives her to Barlow, puts Mark in a fucking chair and like ties him up.
Mark does make a comment earlier. And again, not just the magic.
He can he can get out of any knot
because he's a big Houdini fan. He read
Loves
all about
magic.
Houdini, and Houdini said if you hold your breath, they don't talk about this, but in the book, if you hold your breath, you'll actually be able to contract your muscles, so it'll be a little bit easier to get it. It's in the. I like how they do it, and then it just kind of cuts from commercial, and he's running out of the house, and Ben's walking in. It's like, all right.
They're like crossing paths. He's like, get out of here, Mark, and he's like, no, we got to kill him or whatever.
And he's like, oh, by the way, you know that Susan woman? She's in there
somewhere.
And then, of course, now her father's also there. And it's like, fuck, we got to go in.
Here we are. We are in the end game.
Which is good motivation for that character, I will say, compared to the book. I mean, Jimmy in the book has a lot of his own motivations, don't get me wrong, but Mr. Norton has none. So the fact that they wrote him this way is actually kind of interesting.
It's cool, and it's kind of...
stakes. No pun intended.
He has stakes, but it's kind of ups the body kind of a little bit.
Well, Jimmy dies anyway, spoilers, but yeah.
So they go into the house, and they're looking for Barlow. And he's like, go upstairs, look for him, whatever. Because they need to kill Straker, too. Because they deduce that he's just a man, we'll just shoot the shit out of him and kill
fuck
him.
it.
But we need to stake Barlow through the heart and bring him out into the sunlight.
Right.
So Bill goes upstairs, and Straker comes out of this room and fucking manhandles this dude. He grabs him by the throat and the arm and walks him down the hallway and gives him a fucking Kiefer Sutherland special, dude, right on this rack of deer antler mounts, and just puts him right on the wall.
More like Kiefer gave that guy the fucking Straker special.
Man, it's so good, and like that's a big Lost Boys thing.
Yeah,
I feel like. I mean, even like
it's been done a few times.
It's been done a few. Silent Night, Deadly Night is another big one that I think of. But it's just
this is
so
one of the
good.
more famous shots. One of the more gorier shots they could get away with. Because there's blood and shit coming off of him.
Yeah, he's
dead.
Impaled.
This one I'm gonna spoil. Can I spoil this one for fuck's sake?
You shouldn't spoil it.
Well, I'm going to spoil this particular one.
It's on him.
Jimmy falls on a bunch of knives. That's it. I'm not going to give you any context. That was it. He falls on a bunch of knives.
Okay.
There's a stairwell. He can't see down. He goes to walk, fucking falls because the stairs have been removed by Barlow. Gets killed by a bunch of knives that are bolted into the floor.
Huh. I do like the remove stairs thing, but this is a much more better death for him.
Especially in the time that they're allotted.
Jimmy's Bill, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Bill is such a throwaway character that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Jimmy is
so they merge the
Bill.
characters.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I
had to at least talk about that
fine.
one.
That's fine.
I think they're both great for different reasons. There's other story beats that we can't talk about because they're not in the miniseries or I'm assuming any of this that make it more impactful. But it's very striking because it's like, oh, fuck, we think we're going to get out of this safe. Nope, Jimmy got impaled in the face. Much like Father did here.
So this whole set piece for this next scene is fucking Fright Night. It is Fright Night to a T. You can put You can put this scene and the Fright Night scene of this back to back, and it'll work the same way.
Once they go into the little cubby hole.
Well, no. Straker is starting to come down the stairs.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And Ben has his gun out, right? And it's it's like Mark and Ben are Charlie and Peter Vincent,
the ghoul or whatever.
And Straker is I'm forgetting his name, but from Fright Night, Jerry's
the
familiar
or the ghoul or whatever.
So he's walking down the stairs, and it's like the same exact thing. Even the way that the stairs are laid
framed,
out.
You're right.
Well, yeah, like there's like that middle window in the middle, and then the two walkways, and then the main staircase that comes down. It's like the same layout. And Straker's walking down the stairs, and Ben is just shooting the living fuck out of him.
He unloads the whole clip.
Yeah, Straker like rips a fucking not a spindle. The column from the staircase. He's gonna like bash them to death with it. Anyway, they fucking waste Straker and he like falls down the stairs. It's great.
It takes literally like 2 clips.
2 minutes to put him down.
Just shoot. It's like the end of taming the T-Rex. Just keep unloading on the fucking T-Rex. Yeah. It's like, all right, we got him eventually.
Exactly. So they go down in the basement and Mark falls off the fucking thing because there's no stairs.
That's okay. So there's knives there in the book.
So it's like an allude. Yeah, but it's alluded. So they kind of did it, but not really. So they get down there and they got to find Barlow's coffin. So they find this little alcove, this cubby, and they bust off this fucking lock, but not before dropping the goddamn holy water on the ground.
You know what's funny? They do this in the book where, like, the holy water, like I said, or like we said, is like Sting, but it actually like works on locks and shit in the book.
Oh, because it's like cursed or whatever?
Yeah. Like the priest like throws the holy water on one of the locks and it like melts off and shit. And they have like a scene in the book where here they do just break in. Yeah. Logically, that makes more sense.
Sure.
But where Ben takes like a fucking hatchet to this lock and like puts holy water on it and smashes it. It's really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
They lean into that more. So maybe they're like, well, we can't do that in this because it's too expensive. So just break the fucking
Let's just do it. Yeah, that's it.
And just break the wood like you would, you know? Fuck the lock, just go around it, right?
Yeah.
That's what he does.
So they find his coffin that looks like a fucking like black cake. It looks like
with the other zombies or not zombies.
This is the vampires. And it's so cool. It's like their den, right? So Ben pulls Barlow's coffin out. And all the other vampires are sleeping. Everybody from the town is underneath the fucking Marsten house.
All the people we listed earlier and then some.
Yeah. So
also just real quick,
yeah.
The cop at one point, Parkins.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Fucking leaves.
He's like, "Fuck you, I'm out of here."
Yeah, Ben goes to him for help when he's like packing up the family, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not fighting vampires. If you want us, I'll do it. Here's my fucking gun and some ammunition. I'm going to live with my sister.
Hope it works for you. Going south, South Carolina. See ya."
Chicken shit, but kind of smart. I know Tony from Hack Movies would have done the same thing. I probably would have done the same thing. But hey, maybe I would like to. Maybe I'd be braver, Joe. Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. Maybe I'd be Ben with the fucking hatchet. I would like to hope, but maybe not. Maybe I'm Jimmy on the knives.
If you've dedicated yourself to serving and protecting, the law and the innocent and civilians, you'd think so. You'd think he'd be the one.
The more
to do
I'm thinking about it, I'm Jimmy. I'm on the knives. I'm falling off those stairs. I just know myself. I'm a klutz.
That sucks. Then what do I do? And then I got to fight Barlow by myself.
You better have a little kid Dobby's with you to finish off the job. You and Dobby.
Dobby's got the backpack with the stakes in it.
Yeah. I mean, you both survive. You're in the prologue and the epilogue.
This is also true.
You got it made.
I take him to Barcelona or wherever the fuck we're going.
Los Zapatos. But anyway, yes.
Guatemala, excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. They pull the coffin out. They drag it out of the fucking hovel.
They drag it out and like it's very much Ben defeating his demons within the Marsten house kind of allegory here, right?
Especially since the vampire can't speak to him and taunt him like in the book.
Right. Barlow is very much acts as the heart of the Marsten house for the movie version.
That's why I kept mentioning, I mean, besides obviously the visage of the mansion, House of Usher, kind of similar in that sense.
And I think that's a cool way to do it. So Ben opens the coffin and he's got the fucking stake and he's driving it into Barlow and he's smacking it with the fucking hammer. This thing pops up and like screams and like has this horrible roar.
The Michael Myers moment, yeah.
I love it. But as he's doing this, the fucking light in the basement is swinging back and forth like on on Mark. And like behind him in the alcove, you see the glowing eyes and the vampires coming out. Dude, it is so fucking cool.
Also, because this is a vampire story where if you kill the head vampire, that doesn't mean the rest just disappear. They're just now aimless.
Yeah. Now they're just creatures of the night, dude.
Which is one thing I wonder
it's kind of neat.
If the Dark Tower series goes into that. Maybe you could answer that. Maybe you can't. The book does mention a couple times Barlow has some kind of higher power he's working for. a master he refers to a couple times.
I'm almost positive that
Okay.
would tie back to it because it makes sense.
like a Pennywise or some kind of eldritch horror.
Well, some kind of thing
Okay,
like that.
okay.
I mean, that's how the Dark Tower universe works. And, like, who knows? I'm not sure if it's confirmed or denied or whatever, like, where Barlow actually came from.
Germany in the book, because they make a point,
Yeah.
they lean into kind of that stuff where Germany was going after, like, vampires and shit during World War II.
Yeah.
So, like, oh, he fled the Nazis.
Well, like, even that's kind of cool. But even, like, the Stephen King EU, like, I don't know where that falls within the Dark Tower.
okay.
Like, I'd have to go refresh my memory on that. I know Smith knows.
Well, because there's how many books over how many years at this point.
And, like, he likes to bring his characters back. And again, Callahan is definitely in Dark Tower and all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
And there are vampires in the Dark Tower series.
Yes.
So he's hammering this fucking guy. Mark closes the door, locks him in, and Barlow finally dies. And it's this cool, like, there's like this wind's blowing, and like his skin is like dissipating, and coming off, and he turns into this skull. It's really cool.
I like that.
I like it a lot.
Reminiscent of like an Indiana Jones 3.
Yeah, kinda. So Barlow's dead, but all the vampires aren't.
No.
And then, the final nail in the coffin, no pun intended.
A lot of puns unintended on the. Sorry, folks, we can't help it. We're corny.
Ben wants to burn down the mansion, so he fucking puts gas all over the place and fucking torches this bitch.
As seen on the cover of the book. By the way, one more spoiler. Never fucking happens in the book.
Don't go any farther than that.
In the epilogue, there's some implications that something may have burned, but not that.
Yeah. So they burn this house to the fucking ground. And then Ben and Mark just team up, and they're like, those vampires are going to come after us, right? So I guess we're going on the road as vampire hunters.
But also just trying to get the fuck out of here.
I am fucking convinced that Mark grew up, changed his name to Jack Crow, and he's working for the what do you call?
Oh, the vampire $sign people. The Roman Catholic Church, I guess, is what it actually was.
He's working for the fuck. Why can't I think of the name?
I don't know. We've like we said, we did 2 episodes on this fucking thing.
No, what's the place in Italy?
Oh, the Vatican.
The Vatican. Yeah, he's working for the Vatican.
Hey, that lines up.
Dude, Mark,
dyes his hair.
Mark is Jack Crow. That's That's MDU canon. That's it now.
I mean, according to the little bit I do know about the extended universe through Dark Towers, that I know eventually Ben does die and there's a funeral, so maybe that's what pushed him over the edge to finally become Jack Crow.
It's possible. His mom and dad are killed by vampires, just like Jack Crow's parents. And Mark's dad did say he was not going to become anything with being into monsters, so now he's a fucking like wealthy vampire hunter for the Vatican.
Yeah, he's gonna kill Daniel Baldwin, believe it or not.
Remember they have that whole heart-to-heart in the bathroom with Jack Crow and the priest?
Right, yeah, and the sad thing, speaking of Daniel Baldwin, Jack Crow didn't know he had that teleporter on his leg, so when he drove down the street with fucking what's-her-face from Twin Peaks, he just teleported off, and then Jack Crow didn't know where the hell he went.
Nope, sure didn't. Want to know why? Because it all comes back to John Hurt doing the fucking Dracula Unbound shit.
Exact. Movie dumpster universe. Somehow it always connects.
So yeah. Fast forward 2 years later, again, we're back in Guatemala. And
by the way, we never found out what happened to Susan.
We never found out what happened to Susan.
Will we find out, Joe?
Yeah, because like the vampires have been chasing them, and then Susan is just in Guatemala, and she's like, hey, Ben, I love you. I always loved you. And like tries to like use his love against him to like turn him, because she's clearly a vampire now. And he just stakes this bitch right through the heart, and she's kaput.
Yeah, okay. This is like my biggest bitch against Mr. Richard Kobritz. This was his idea.
Yeah.
I don't think this was necessary at all. If you wanted to burn the mansion down, okay, it's striking.
I think that would have been a fitting ending if it just like if you just saw the mansion burning and then like pan up to the moon. I think that would have been great.
The thing with Susan's death in the book, we're at the end here. I guess it's the last book reference, is so pivotal to Ben's character arc.
Yeah.
It happens like at the end of the second act, and then like way more shit happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of like his motivations going forward, whereas here it's just kind of capping off the film. Oh, well, let's move on. It doesn't have the same impact for me at all. And plus, we don't get that beautiful stream of blood shooting off the vampire, which King talks about very much out of like a Dead and Loving It or Bram Stoker's
Bram
Dracula.
Stoker kind of job.
But yeah, it just kind of ends after that. They're back on the run hunting vampires.
I think it does it well, I don't know. I agree with you that I don't need the comeback later to the wraparound part. Like if Susan was just in the house somewhere, and again, if it just went up in flames and it was the moon, that's fine. And then Mark and Ben just kind of go about their merry way, and they're like, there's going to be more of them. So they're on the run from vampires their whole life, I guess.
It's certainly a case of editing and the way that things are formatted in the film. It's impossible to really do what I'm saying without changing a lot of things. But thank you, Richard. You made that decision. I guess you also made the Barlow decision. So, hey, what did I say earlier? Win some, lose some.
Hey, man.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, not too bad. But, okay, so trick or trash, baby. What treat is this in your candy bag?
Oh, man. This is like that offshoot sour worm.
Okay.
Like,
I
the
like
trolley
sour
worms?
Yeah, I love them.
But you get like that one you haven't seen before.
Okay.
You're like, oh, I like these things. I've had every flavor, but I haven't had that one. And you start chewing on it. And you're like, this kind of tastes like the other one. It's pretty good. The other one being the book in this context. Let's actually make it make sense. But you know what? There's just something's off about it. The texture's a little weird. It's a little chewier than you want. And it takes a lot longer to kind of get through than you want it to. Like it's lost flavor by the time you're done. And that's how I kind of feel about this. I still enjoyed the candy. The gummy worm was enjoyed. I ate the whole fucking bag, no problem. I'm even going to go back and buy another one, even though I didn't really like it that much because it was still pretty good. That's how I feel about this. It was pretty good. If I removed myself from the book a little bit, maybe do what you did, maybe I wouldn't have been so harsh on it. Never read it, though, so I was really curious. And then, again, once you start removing all those characters, changing storylines, it's like my brain starts going to overdrive thinking about what could have been. It's hard to separate the two. But I still think this is a solid film. Solid 3 out of 5. I wish certain things were different that I've already expressed, and I'll go deeper into that in Book to the Movie, I mean, when we come back around to that. But pretty good vampire film, especially made for TV. Like, holy shit, some of these effects. I just wish some of the runtime was used a little bit more wisely. Like, I get what you're saying about that whole affair storyline. It is important. I just wish that we got the final part of that story that, in my opinion, we didn't get. That kind of finishes, that ties that whole fucking bow on for that plot line. A lot of nitpicks that kind of add up for me. If I wasn't a book reader, I wonder what I would have thought. But yeah, it's that candy that you just can't get enough of, but it's not that good, and you just keep going back to
keep
it.
eating it.
Yeah.
I think this is a Reese's Ghost for me, specifically, because it's spooky season, baby.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that nostalgia going. And the Reese's always taste better when they're in the shape of a pumpkin or a ghost or a Christmas tree.
I mean, the Reese's in general are top tier on this show, so that's high marks.
So yeah, it's a fan favorite for me. It's a good old standby that is always a good time, and it is always a delicious treat to indulge in. Okay, I love this movie. I love it. I think just for all the marks that you've given it to, I'm going to echo you and say, like, especially made for TV.
I know, yeah.
This is right up there with like Trilogy of Terror. Really, I think it really does a good job of it's so hard. Sorry, I'm kind of sporadic a little bit.
I get what you mean.
It's so hard to really put King into film, and there's only really been a few people that could do it really well. Mike Flanagan,
Mick Garris comes to mind.
Mick Garris, and even Frank Darabont too. They've kind of mastered how to adapt the King. This is the second adaptation ever.
I know, right?
Of the King property. You had De Palma's Carrie for Carrie, and then you had Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot, and that was the second time that it was ever done.
King was very happy at this point. He wasn't pissed off.
He was making the fucking money, dude.
2 in a row that were successful. He wasn't angry yet.
Big time. Before the Coke, right? Before all the Coke and cough medicine.
The trash can concoction.
But yeah, I think the changes that we talked about, that like you were talking about from the book. Now I haven't read the book in a fucking hot minute, but I always give the movie a little bit more wiggle room, because I know that it's tough to adapt a story like that, especially a King story with all those rich characters and scenery and things like that. It's very tough to truncate it. I think Andy Muschietti kind of did it with the first half of It.
Wow,
maybe not the second part. There were things that I liked about it, but
the second one went too off book.
But even Tommy Lee Wallace's It miniseries, that one is so great too, because you need the time to flesh out the characters, because a big part of King's stories are the characters. And if you don't get to know the characters and the dichotomy thereof and their relationships with each other and how they function, you cannot give a fuck about what's happening to them, and the monster and the overlooming darkness is not there. And a lot of King's scares come a lot from childhood fears that we've had. The boogeyman is not just a monster. The boogeyman is an abusive dad. The boogeyman is a cheating wife. The boogeyman
house
is a house. You know, it's all these different things. And I really think this takes all those ideas that are in this book and put it in a semi-digestible. I mean, it's 3 hours.
Yeah,
but I think to get through all of that, and whether you're combining characters or cutting characters or truncating plot lines or dragging ones out a little bit, I think it does a really good job in encapsulating the spirit of the book. And I know that they took the liberty and they changed Barlow, but again, part of the times.
I get
the
it,
Dracula,
totally.
It would have bombed because it would have been like another Dracula fucking thing, another guy, another Christopher Lee. It's like, it's the same shit we've seen. So
I would have liked it more, but you're 100% right.
But like, I think that's it was such a big impact for the time. And like I mentioned before, it was like pioneering that vampire look.
No, yeah.
As a creature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's one of the first movies to do that. And it's shocking, and especially for television. Like I said, it scared the shit out of my mom and dad when they were kids. And the way that they do the whole, the kid, like Danny Glick and Ralphie, like flying around the window with the gimbal and the fog and the eyes and everything. It's just so creepy and atmospheric. And Tobe Hooper like really knocked it out of the park with that. So I think it tells the story well enough in an enjoyable way to be consumed via, a movie, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say, if I didn't already, you don't need to read the book at all to enjoy this.
That's what
just
I
going to
mean.
enhance it or detract from it, if anything.
And I think, in your case, you read the book and then watched the movie. But I'm curious. It would have been like if you watched the movie and then read the book.
I mean, I guess if you're in the comments and you're about to do that experiment, I know some people have commented over the years that have done that with other episodes. Let us know.
And it's funny because I mentioned earlier too that like, there's a lot of plot points in this and the 2004 one that are different.
Oh, yeah.
But the same. Like, they're different, but they all come from the book.
So they're riffing on the same material.
So you're kind of getting the full spectrum of the entirety of the book itself. Maybe, ? I don't know. Let us know. Which adaptation is the best? Which is your favorite? Is it the 79 miniseries? Is it the 2004 miniseries? Or is it the 2024 remake, which we're going to talk about? No spoilers in the comments for the Salem's Lot remake until we put the fucking episode out, please.
Yeah, save them for that video.
Save them for that video and the discussion for that video. But yeah, man, I think it's great. It's really good. It holds up, and it is like the spooky time. Halloween and October is the perfect time to fire this up. You get the fucking nice, cool, crisp weather. You open those windows, dude. You put the fucking.
I'm not opening mine.
Yeah, man. You put. Oh well.
I'm nailing that shit shut.
Just don't invite them in. They'll just hover outside.
There's a lot of mind control, Joe. They're going to make me do it.
You put your Halloween lights in, you get yourself some nice apple cider or some pumpkin hot chocolate or something, man. It's a good time. Good, cozy time. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I get my neck bitten into. All right. Can't drink the hot chocolate anymore because it's going to make me throw up, but all right.
Well, maybe Danny likes pumpkin spice. I don't know.
Well, he's going to throw up too. We're going to throw up together. We're going to be like that Family Guy episode, just puking all over the place.
So yeah, if you want some more Movie Dumpster content, you can head over to patreon.com/moviedumpster. You can get an ad-free audio version of the show for only $2 a month, and you can get some other great stuff at the $5 and $10 tiers, like live watch-alongs, commentary tracks, and even some swag, t-shirts, pins, sticker packs, all kinds of good stuff. So if you want to do that, go support your favorite show.
And if you're watching this video on YouTube, please like it and share it. It does really help get the word out on the show, and subscribe if you're not already. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, leave us that 5-star review if you got the time, and give us a thumbs up. It really does help grow this dumpster community, get the show into more eardrums, eyeballs, and everything in between. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, those reviews really help. Give us a little treat in our treat bag, would you? Leave us that review. It'd be really helpful if you did that for the show. But yeah, you can also go to moviedumpsterpodcast.com. We got a store there if you want to buy some stuff, if you'd like to do that. We also have a calendar, so you can see the events that we have coming up for the year. And yeah, follow us on social media at Movie Dumpster, wherever you like to do your social media.
All right, I'm gonna go read this book again, so I'm ready to spoil the shit out of you on the book of the movie, Joe.
So that's it. That's Salem's Lot from 1979, directed by Tobe Hooper. I'm Joel Escola.
And I'm Sean O'Rourke.
Thanks for visiting the dumpster.